Caught up with Donegal star and Kellogg's Cool Camps ambassador Micheal Murphy to chat about their brilliant summer, Donegal's brilliant summer, and to look ahead to their Super 8 campaign. Have a look.
So Micheal Murphy is a Kellogg's GAA Cool Camp ambassador, and the camps are open for registration now on gaa.ie/Kellogg's Cool Camps. Kellogg's GAA Cool Camps is Ireland's biggest children's summer camp, and I'm delighted to say that Micheal Murphy himself is on the line. Good afternoon to you, Micheal. How are things?
Not too bad, Owen. How are you?
All good, all good. So I guess there's been some reflection certainly in the media over the last couple of weeks about Donegal and their performances in Ulster over the past decade. It has been quite the decade for you, hasn't it, in terms of the overall haul, in terms of Ulster medals?
Yeah, come here. It's looking back like any player. You tend not to look back when you're in the heart of it. You're kind of living in the present, and you're always looking towards what the next one could potentially be. But yeah, I suppose to think back to 2010, to think that you possibly weren't going to, you were sitting really on no medals as such, and Donegal had a big lull from 92 really. To be sitting there, I suppose, with 5 has been good. There's been some defeats along the way too, and some maybe not so good days, but by and large and overall, it has been quite a good decade. And as I say, we're in the middle of a big year now again for ourselves, and we're looking forward now to getting rattled into the Super 8s.
For sure. In terms of yourself, in terms of the footballer that Micheal Murphy is, what has been the biggest change over that decade?
Oh, Jacob, big one. Yeah, in general, I suppose the styles of play in football have changed quite radically over the decade. I think there's been initially there was a big move, I think, at the start of that decade towards players becoming, more conditioned and fitter and stronger and quicker. And then there was a move then into the more tactical element of things where, everybody really started to get the defensive hats on, really. And then, I suppose now, towards the end of the decade, I think teams now are moving towards a more of a facet of the game where they need to realise they need to get scores on the board, and I think they're trying to evolve their game plans from a real bad bodies back behind the ball and defensive structure into maybe more of an attacking style of structure, and with that then becomes players need to become more skillful and more rounded as footballers, I think, and that's the change we're seeing, I think, at the moment now in the modern day game.
That's very interesting. So you would say that the emphasis on being an athlete rather than a footballer has changed a little bit over the last 5, 6, 7 years, and back to more footballers, back to more skillful players. Of course, the athleticism is still important, though.
Yeah, I think it's more important, but it's been taken as a given, whereas back at the start of the decade, that probably wasn't a given. So it was a big cultural change within club teams and within county teams. They needed to be in gyms and they needed to be out running, and they felt that they needed to be conditioned in order to play the game that they needed to play. I think now that's a given, and every team has to basically tick that box off, and obviously that requires effort and it requires a hell of a lot of expertise, but it's much more of a given now, whereas I suppose going back then, and the emphasis now, I feel around squads, whether that be at club level or county level or even schools level that I was involved with, is much more back to the skills of the game, and having, I suppose, your whole squad able to defend properly, tackle properly, and been able to execute the passes of kicking and twisting and basic things like that there. So I think it's much more getting back to that there, over the last number of years, And if you look, I suppose, at the teams that have been successful, and you look at the Dublins, obviously they're supremely well conditioned, but they also have a squad of footballers who are all able to carry out the basic skills of the game better than anybody in Ireland has been able to do over the last number of years.
How much training do you do on the basics with Donegal?
It's basically everything from the warm-up. Basically now, where you used to have your warm-up that you used to be running over and back without a football, it generally includes a football now. So straight away, as you come out towards the pitch, you have a ball in your hand, and basically for the next hour and a half to 2 hours, you generally have the ball in your hand, other than you're going to try and look for the ball, or you're trying to get the ball back off somebody, but the ball is included in basically 95% of the session. And as a result, you're making decisions there, and you're making game results, and you're making game decisions there right on task. So from the warm-up right through to the more game-based approach, which tends to be what we take place here in Donegal, the ball is included, as I say, in 95% of it,
There's been plenty of praise to go around for Donegal so far this summer. I'm sure you're not reading into it too much, but there's been praise for yourself, for your teammates, for Declan Boner, and indeed for Stephen Rochford. What exactly is Stephen Rochford's role?
Stephen's been involved, I suppose, now with us from the very start of the year. It's been brilliant so far. He's brought a fresh outlook to us within the squad and within Donegal. He's probably come in with no real preconceived ideas off the players as individuals or as characters or as the players as footballers, and then and he just really has pushed the buttons on everyone within the whole group, and in terms of trying to bring us out of our comfort zones, and that's really been good from our point of view. He's extremely professional in his approach, and as I say, he's hands on in terms of the coaching and the tactical element that he's brought to it, along with Declan, who's there, and along with Carl Lissy and Gary Boyle. So the whole lot of them work together as a team, and they say they lay out really challenging training sessions for us all the time, and the challenges then individually going into games and going into those trainers. So he's been brilliant in that regard, to come into Donegal for us, and we're delighted to have him.
How exactly has he taken you out of your comfort zone?
Well, I suppose likewise in anything, that most of the people that have been involved with the team, and it's not to down anybody that's involved with the background team within Donegal, but they have been Donegal-based people, and just I think Stephen's idea of having more of an idea from coming from outside Donegal, and maybe coming from his appointments within Carnarvon and Mayo. You've seen the brand of football that they played, and you've seen the style of individual football that they played too. So I think he was much more able to challenge us individually, and I just know myself personally, he looks at your game. He was able to look at the game from a point of view of contributing more with and without the ball for me, and he does that in training. Not to get into too much detail or give too much stuff away, but he does that before and after, and he has that quiet word and he has that quiet chat, which I'm sure 99% of the other coaches are doing too. But he's just I just think the fact that it's coming maybe possibly from someone else, and the way he's able to portray it and communicate it carries a hell of a lot of weight, and both the younger players and the older players in the squad are really kind of rowing behind it, and are really getting a hell of a lot of it so far this season.
It seemed that the move was indicative of a real lack of ego in the camp, a lack of ego from Declan Boner, a lack of ego from Stephen Rochford himself to come in and, whatever it may be, divvy the workload. I know you don't want to go into too much detail about what the secrets are, but in terms of workload, in terms of looking from the outside in, it seems that everybody's like, right, what is the best for Donegal football here and for the best of this team? There's no ego in this camp.
Yeah, there's a bit made of that to begin with, and I think the first meeting that we had with Declan, or with Stephen, that was very evident. He's a huge footballing man, and he just has an encyclopedia of knowledge of the game and of footballers around the country, and then also he has a really strong background in terms of coaching and how to get a game plan across, and how to coach that game plan, and how to coach really the key intricacies and the skills of the game. And I suppose the credit has to go due to Declan, who people would have seen another manager maybe coming in, and you see it maybe stepping on Declan's toes, but that's not to be. Declan was a Donegal man first and foremost, and always has been, always will be, and he's just mad, as you say, for Donegal to do the best possible. And having Stephen Rochford added to the coaching ticket that was already there was a no-brainer when it became a possibility. And we're just delighted that they are there. And as I say, there's very little egos. There's no egos really there at all amongst all the coaching staff as well as the footballers. And we just hope long may that continue, and long may that try to bring us success.
Yeah, and ultimately the end game there is each player excelling to the best of their potential. From your perspective, is there a particular position at this point? I know you've been asked this question previously many times, but a particular position or an area of the park or the game indeed this year that you're excelling in specific terms?
Yeah, well, I suppose I came back late enough in the National League, and basically I seemed to have played a lot more of my football further up the field, whether that be in the half forward line or full forward line, and that's kind of continued through far in the Championship. And yeah, I suppose likewise, I'd imagine and envisage that'll be the case for the rest of the year. We have a midfield going very strongly there in Hugh McFadden and Jason McGee. And as I say, I'm delighted just to play my part in the forwards whatever way possible. likewise there'll always be times and games where you need to help out and dig out, and you might be seen further back the pitch. But yeah, likewise you try and stay up the pitch as much as possible and do your job for the team. So I think that's been a change for me over the last year.
One of the last things I wanted to chat to you about, Micheal, was the idea of leadership and the leadership core in this team, because you were obviously entrusted with the Donegal captaincy from quite a young age. You were identified as somebody who had that innate leadership capability. Are there other young leaders in that team now, people who you don't necessarily need to teach how to be a leader, they just have it?
Yeah, we're very fortunate. I suppose that for 2 or 3 years ago when Rory took over the team, I suppose he went down the road of bringing through a lot of the younger lads. And inter-county football can be it's a very exposing place to be, especially sometimes for inexperienced footballers, and we probably had a lot of inexperienced footballers at that time playing with us, and now they're 2 or 3 years down the line and they've blossomed as footballers. They've also got that maturity of people and of inter-county players now too. So you see them blossoming now as leaders within the squad, and you see, Ryan and Hugh McFadden are two massive ones for us, and allied then with Owen Bang Gallagher coming in there too. He's really, really strong and really, really good. So it's brilliant to have them around and to have them around you. And then you have the older players that are still there, I suppose, and Neil McGee and Frank McGlynn and Liam McClune. So as I say, there's plenty there and plenty there to fill holes and fill gaps for you. But just the atmosphere within the squad at the moment and the kind of I suppose the whole culture around the squad at the moment is very bright, and it's very, I suppose, just exciting in terms of going to training. There's a really good buzz there, and people are really, really enjoying their football and enjoying their training. I think that's portraying out on their performances so far,
There's always pressure on a team that are going into the Super 8s and going into the All-Ireland Series and as Ulster champions. But do you think there's been a little weight lifted off your shoulders this season in terms of the names that you've mentioned there? Because they're all stepping up to the plate. The burden isn't on Micheal Murphy's shoulders as some might perceive it used to be.
Yeah, I suppose, you look at I suppose our spread of even scoring throughout this year. It's been spread right across the whole team, and that's brilliant to see. And again, there's probably reasons, and there's reasons why we all want to do that too. And I suppose you just have to look at what you're trying to achieve. And the game, what we're trying to achieve is be successful. So that's be successful in Ulster and be successful in the Super 8s. And if you're very fortunate enough to overcome the Super 8s and get into the last 4, you want to be successful in them. So there has to be a model of playing, and there has to be a model of going forward that you really need to hone in on. And one of them was to try and, I suppose, have complete footballers, the likes of what the Dublins have brought to the table over the last number of years. And even you look at your successful teams in Tyrone and what Kerry's are doing in terms of trying to have, defenders who are able to defend first and foremost, but able to bring something to the table going forward. And then, I suppose, attackers who are able to attack, but also them, when without the ball, who are able to defend. So I think that's something, I suppose, the spread of scores has increased from us throughout the field, but also then we'd like to think that in terms of the defensive responsibilities too, we'd like to feel that we've taken the burden as a group of forwards, and as a whole squad, to try and increase our possibilities and chances in terms of defending too,
Yeah, for sure, and that's going to be something that whatever your first Super 8 opponent is, there'll be something for them to look out for in that game. We'll know this weekend who the identity of that first opponent is going to be. Going into the Super 8s, lastly, Micheal, this year, I guess last year, I presume there's a feeling in Donegal that you didn't quite do yourselves justice. The McBrearty injury really hampered you, whereas this year there's a bit more depth there. There's a bit more of a better mood, I dare say, in the camp. I'm not sure what to say with regards to that, but you're in a better place basically 12 months on from the first Super 8s.
Well, sitting here at the moment, I suppose a week out, you would like to think you're in a better place. But inter-county football, I suppose, is an animal of the game, and a lot will come down to now our first game in that. I suppose our first game last year was against Dublin, and we got beaten automatically. That puts you in the back burner, even though you were coming in as champions, and the feel-good factor of winning Ulster Championship was brilliant. Automatically, when you lose a game, you're on the back foot in the Super 8s, and we know that from experience last year. So I suppose we've been concentrating on Sunday Ulster as just this first game. It's a bit tricky, you don't know your opponent, but we have a small idea now. It's either going to be Meath or Clare, so we've been just really, really pushing hard towards that first game, first and foremost, and that's what we'll be throwing all their eggs into the one basket for that. But yeah, no, as I say, the mood is good, and I suppose that I keep on saying that the youthful exuberance of the younger lads that are there have really brought the best out in the whole lot of us, and they go into it with I wouldn't say a carefree attitude, but they're much more excitable in terms of training and wanting to impose themselves in trainings and games and enjoying that. So that's really rubbed off in the whole lot of us, and we just hope that can carry through now for us towards the Super 8, you know.
Well, I think I speak for a lot of GAA fans when I say we're looking forward to seeing a bit more of this Donegal team in action during the Super 8. Very best of luck with the training over the next week, Michael, and we'll chat to you soon. Thanks for taking the call.
Thanks, Owen. Thank you.
Micheal Murphy is an ambassador for Kellogg's GAA Cool Camp, and the Cool Camps are open for registration now on gaa.ie/Kellogg's Cool Camps. Kellogg's GAA Cool Camps is Ireland's biggest children's summer camp.